Well, g'day footy fans. Welcome to season 2022 in the Adelaide Footy League, and something new, Phil's Footy Talk. My name's Phil Hurden. Through the course of the season, we're going to have some in-depth chats with the movers and shakers in the competition. And when you think of that, you think of none other, to start off, the CEO of the League, John Kernahan. John, welcome to a new season.
Thanks very much, Phil. It is a relief to be here.
We're just a few days away from the first bounce. Usually at this time, there's a sense of urgency around the competition. There's a deadline with the first game, lots of things to do. What's occupying you at HQ at the moment?
Oh, listen, I don't know if sense of urgency right at the very moment is our motivating factor, as much as we've got a lot of things on that could be described as irregular, and the team, ranging from the staff to the board, having to be relatively agile in how we address some of those challenges as they pop up.
One of those, I assume, look, registrations always have a habit of coming in late. That makes team commitments difficult, and that makes scheduling even worse. Is this year any different with that?
Listen, it is, and there's probably a range of reasons why. The first being, let's be clear, it is always the same. I mean, in any other year. This year's probably been compounded because we have a new competition management system, coupled with what everyone has come to understand is a genuine challenge through COVID and the reprioritising of players and where they're going to apply their time. So all those things have probably amounted to a cocktail of uncertainty and a cocktail of frustration and anything else that, if nothing else, it's going to be interesting.
And probably the last 2 years and the changes you've had to make on the fly, where you have to be nimble, have to get everybody's approval in a quick space of time. Have you got that process down pat now?
Well, we had to change our governance model, which when you have a constitution that is 50 years old and it still requires the General Committee to meet at a face-to-face, we've caught up with everyone else in best practice, and everyone's been forced into the same line of thought here from the last couple of years, that we can now govern our league electronically to address rule changes, constitution changes. If in fact, as was proven a couple of weeks ago, we had a threat of an outbreak, so we had to cancel a General Committee meeting, that we can conduct our business electronically. It needs to be made really clear that it's not the best way to do business. We're still a personal-based business where we like to see our members face to face. We like them to have open and transparent discussion in the way they might be able to assess proposed changes. It can get lost, but we're managing.
Being nimble. And you mentioned the new competition system. Now, anywhere I've worked, new system comes in every time there's teething issues. Is that what we're seeing here, or are there some more serious things to work through?
Oh, it is teething. It's all of the above. It's teething. It's a system that has to date has not delivered what we thought it was going to deliver. But that said, as was clearly put to the AFL earlier in the week, we've no doubt that it's not terminal, but it's been badly prepared, and it's causing a significant degree of frustration amongst our clubs, and from what we understand, a significant degree of frustration amongst administrators. Now, the Adelaide Footy League's lucky enough that we've got full-time staff. I have a genuine degree of empathy for organisations that are volunteer-based trying to manage this system. That would be a significant challenge for those.
Yeah, and it's obviously an external thing that's come from on high, and maybe a pilot to have got through these might have been a better way of doing it.
I mean, we take a relative comfort that it's not Adelaide Footy League based, it's certainly not South Australian based, it's a national platform. So the AFL have to get it right, and if anyone has the resources to get it right, it's them. Yep. But that doesn't dismiss the fact that this has been a really average introduction to this system.
Just added an extra complication at a time when
Absolutely.
You've got a fair bit on your plate.
It's hard enough as it is. This hasn't been great.
We're here at Victoria Park and right in front of one of the main COVID testing stations, and every interview we've done, John, COVID has been front and centre. of that, and it won't be any different today. Saw projections during the week, we could have as many as 8,000 new cases a day. How does that worry you about the league and the clubs just being able to function?
Well, it doesn't worry me per se, in as much as it's not like a pandemic of on-field violence where we can address it through imposing tougher sanctions or club-imposed sanctions to address it. This is a worldwide issue, and there's not much we can do about it except to adapt as we go. So, we'd rather we didn't have it, but we do have it. We've had 2 years of dealing with it now. We take a relative degree of comfort that our clubs are really well versed in addressing these challenges on the run. If anything, it's brought us, I'll keep saying, you'd rather it didn't happen, but if anything, it's brought us together as a community and as an organisation, and our familiarity with our clubs and them with us has probably gone up as a result.
There are some silver linings around it. It's been a difficult time.
Yeah, correct.
So John, you've been preparing for this since, towards the end of last season. What happens if COVID hits a particular club in a big way? Are we looking at bringing the kids up? Are we looking at possible postponement or even a forfeit?
No, we will do our absolute best to make sure that the game is played. We'll introduce some subtle changes to our regulations that will allow a game to proceed and hopefully dilute the opportunity or the likelihood of a blowout in scores. We'll have an even up rule that if a C-grade team turns up with 14 players and the opposition's got 24, then the opposition's going to have to play with 14. We would suggest that it's far more important that in that case we had 28 players playing with some on the bench.
Yep.
Than all of those players jumping in their car and driving home. That would be counterproductive to participation.
At the end of the day, do what we can, play the game.
We've got to play, and the game will survive, but we've got to keep people engaged, and I think everyone's really accepting these days that we're in challenging times and it's not how it used to be. We've just got to do what we can.
A new word for 2022 creeping in is COVID fatigue. And we've seen articles in the paper about community sport trying to deal with that after 2 years of COVID. Are you seeing sign of that fatigue around the league?
I think COVID fatigue isn't just confined to sport. COVID fatigue is in industrial relations, memos. It is everywhere, and it's significant. And we need to be really conscious of it. Now, sport, particularly with volunteers, hasn't been great in looking after them. Forever and a day we continue to hear our volunteers saying it gets harder and harder. Well, if it was a throwaway line before, it's fair income now.
Oh, yeah.
It's a significant concern, and we can tolerate losing players. Let's say we're 20% down in player participation. What we can't lose is 20% of our volunteers, because they were stretched to start with, let alone losing more.
Yeah. And for many of them, it's a double whammy. It's not just the extra conditions they have to abide by at their club. It's actually their life being turned upside down as well.
Well, it's not like COVID fatigue is only at the footy club. They've come from work where they've been for 8 hours or might have been working from home. So they've got COVID fatigue at work, COVID fatigue at home, kids being kept home because of school, or grandchildren in some cases, where grandparents have to look after their kids so that mum and dad can go to work. It's bigger than sport.
Yeah. Are there ways you've been able to find where the league's been able to assist, find some ways where what may have seen the norm before, a little bit less onerous now?
Well, listen, we're looking at it, and one of the things that we're doing, and it's not going to be the be all and end all, but we're currently considering, although it looks very, very likely, that we'll do little things like have last possession. Now, whilst last possession is normally, in a normal environment, would still have a boundary umpire, we're going to relax our expectations so that clubs don't have to find volunteers to boundary umpire. It's got hairs on it. It's not ideal, but at the same time, we'll manage. One thing that I will say, and let me be really clear about this: football people or volunteers in general that facilitate sport are really good at putting on their sports, whether it be football or rowing or tennis. That's what they do.
Yeah.
If they've got to find a way to put it on, they'll find a way.
Yeah. Another emerging threat, I guess we're starting to see inflation come back in, costs going up. Are there ways the league can assist in that area through your economies of scale and your professional staff to help out?
We're being really cautious as far as our operations are concerned. We're nearly two staff members down in our normal operational budget. We're not going to replace those staff members until we're really confident of where we're at. So we're going to have to rely on our clubs being patient, that we're not fully flushed as far as resources. All that said, I would suggest to you that, at least as far as the league is concerned, we're not in a bad position. We've had 2 years where it could have been worse, but it hasn't been as bad as what it could have been. Our volunteers have worked hard to maintain their sponsors. Our sponsors have stayed on board to a large degree. It's not a great risk at the moment.
Yeah. Your vibe from the club finances at the moment, how have they got through the last couple of years?
Anecdotally, we're hearing that some clubs are still relatively flush due to 2020 when they didn't have to pay players. So they've got some money in the bank. Listen, if we had electricity doesn't go down in cost, water doesn't go down in cost, gas doesn't go down in cost. If they continue to lose players from registering, which is the backbone of their operational expense and income, then it becomes a threat. Absolutely, it does.
So much of what you've had to do the last couple of seasons has been reacting. Problem comes up, we've got to solve it, being nimble, agile, all those kind of things. Have you had to put anything on the back burner that you really wanted to get your teeth into, but now was just not the right time?
Yeah, we have, and there's an irony that one of those has been a real focus on our partnership with Breakthrough. I say irony because right at the very moment, with everything we're going through, mental health is going to be a really significant challenge for everyone. Yeah. So on the one hand, we wanted to put more focus on that to assist our clubs address it, and now we have a situation where through external threats and influences, mental health is going to be a really key focus going forward anyway. So it'll catch up, but that's probably the answer to the question.
Yeah, it's the importance of it is there for all to see. Let's move to some on-field stuff. Season coming up. Any new rules we're likely to see? You mentioned last possession in, I think, B's and C's.
We'll go with last possession for B's and C's, and we'll also have an even up rule. But that's it. We've been really conscious that we just spoke about volunteer fatigue. We've been really conscious that we've gone from 2021 to 2022 with as little change as possible. We've tried to leave our clubs alone. So that they don't have to manage changes. We can get away with it for a year or two while we just allow everyone to be involved without too much.
Yeah. Let's not change what we don't. Plenty of changes elsewhere.
Correct.
On the surface, it looked like there was quite a importation of really good players coming into the competition this year across a range of divisions, ex-AFL, plenty of ex-Sandful. Do you think it's more than normal, more metro than country this year?
I don't know if it's more out of those competitions. Those competitions will tell us that it's the same.
Yeah.
I think what we're probably seeing is some of those players that might have gone to the country in the past are staying closer to home because we keep using this word reprioritising. The priority to go and play in the country for more money or whatever the case is just not
as much
on their
as
agenda as it once was. So they're staying close to home, and we're by default the beneficiary of that.
Yeah, exactly. As a Sandful fan, for some time I've seen the AFL and the Sandful gap grow, attendances, crowds, exposure, standard. Any thoughts about the gap between Sandful level and our level? Is that?
Oh, I think if you used when there's no real gauge, it's like saying can a Division 5 team beat Division 1 reserves? The answer probably lies in the fact that when we see some of our Division 1 or 2 clubs play against a reserve grade team from a league club, those scoreline are fairly consistent until half-time or three-quarter time, until fatigue or fitness becomes a factor in the match. So every player can kick or catch roughly the same. It's the ability to be able to continue to kick and catch at the same level, and that's generally based on fitness. And those guys and girls these days train from, November 3 and 4 times a week. Our guys and girls are picking it up with more intensity in the new year. So we're a little bit behind, but we don't hang our hat on that. It's a place for people to play who don't want to play league footy anymore. They've got careers, they've got families. That's our strength.
Often that's the attraction.
Absolutely.
I don't have to do all that.
No,
commitment.
and so we don't look at it as a negative. It's a positive. It provides an alternative for people to play the game.
Absolutely. 2017, women's footy came under the Adelaide Footy League banner, and so we've had 5 years of it, and it's been a phenomenal growth. How much do you think that's changed the league and local clubs?
It's changed the league significantly, and relatively it's changed our clubs. Our clubs have been the beneficiary of a range of advantages, being primarily facilities, even if it's just facilities that were built in the 50s and 60s that still had just 2 change rooms and a urinal in the toilet and all those things, to now being upgraded over time or in sync with elections, whether they be federal or state. So that's probably been the most tangible benefit. But from a holistic point of view, our clubs have more people in the footy clubs. Even if it's just basic economy, there's more people paying fees. I mean, you questioned before about club finances. Well, there's more people in clubs at the moment, especially those with women and girls, and so there's more people playing the game. We're all winning.
Yeah. The growth has been amazing. How much further do you think it's got to go? Where do you think we might be with women's footy in 5 years?
I don't know, and the reality is, if you ask the AFL, they can't tell you either.
Yeah, true.
So if we ask them for their projections and we ask them for their strategic plan, they're very loose. No one's got a true gauge as to where the plateau is going to come from or when it's going to arrive. What I will say though is we still need to be relatively excited the fact that there's a whole wave of girls that have come through our clubs, that will come through our clubs over the course of the next 12 months, 2 years or 3 years, that started playing as 10 and 11-year-olds from 2017 onwards. So they will eventually become women. Hopefully they become our players. So I still think there's some growth. Yeah. Where it stops and where it plateaus, we don't know.
Last year you made the change from Sunday to Saturday games for the women's. You've had a year of feedback on that. How has the move been received?
Well, I think the move has been, when you implement change, sometimes the pushback is because people can't identify what it's going to be like. What we've found since moving to Saturday football is consistent with that one club ethos, that the girls are playing at their ground, the boys are playing at their ground, everyone's meeting at the footy club on a Saturday night, presentations. Whereas before, it was Saturday night for the boys, if at all, on Sunday for the girls. Yeah. So the one advantage has been more people at a footy club on a Saturday night, and that was the whole. Whilst we had some challenges with green space with junior footy on Sundays, the positive out of the whole focus was going to be bringing clubs together rather than running them separately or segregating genders.
Yeah. And we've often enjoyed doing a Div 1 broadcast. We finish up and the girls run out and they're playing, and they've actually got an audience in front that are wrapping up, and that then leads into the post-match from there. Yeah,
so there's been advantages for everyone on it, and I think I don't want to speak on behalf of the women on this, but I would imagine they're enjoying having a more focus on their game from the traditional participant being men. And that's the only way we're going to get to be totally accepting that gender doesn't matter. The game is the game.
Footy is footy, and everyone can play it.
Everyone can play it.
One of the changes that occurred this year was the Sandford W introduced the Development League, and my understanding is this was done with great consultation. It's just finished, so the girls, many of them will be available to come back to their clubs. Does it look like it's going to be a win-win for everyone? Some of your talented kids can get a higher level experience, but you're not losing players?
Well, I'm a great believer in there has to be a pathway for players. So I fully understand the ideology that these kids have played in their community clubs, and we want them to stay. But we've got to give them an opportunity to go and play at a high level, to be exposed to other experiences, whether it be facilities at league clubs, level of training. We've got to give them a go, and they'll come back. They'll come back to our boys. Boys have been going to league clubs since Jesus played, but they end up coming back to our clubs, and we anticipate they come back as better players, maybe better people. They've had better experiences,
New ideas.
Everyone wins. We need to share the experience. I mean, I'm from a same era as you, and we come from an era where we might have played under 17s and 19s, and God, I'd give that anything for that time again. They were great times, but they also served as a platform for me to continue to play, and I would imagine that experience would be played out with everyone.
There was a time, not too long ago, when the Amateur League, as it was back then, was fiercely independent. How's the relationship you find now, both with clubs and Sandford clubs, and yourself and the Sandford?
We're still fiercely independent, let's be clear about that, but probably what's changed is a general recognition from both the Sandford and us that it's far easier to work together to a common cause than be butting heads. Butting heads is emotionally draining for a start. You lose productivity. So their focus has seriously changed in the last 5 years, from being just Footy Park, just the Adelaide Crows or the AFL licences, to now having a significant recognition that community footy and participation in community footy plays a key role to their viability. So we've probably downed our swords. They've embraced us as an organisation to the point now that we work pretty well together. And like our clubs and the league have come together as a result of COVID, it's probably fair to say that so have we with Sandford.
One of the things that you do have to work through with Sandford is league headquarters. Thebarton Oval, moved the admin side of it. I guess we're really waiting for the Crows soap opera side of this to work itself out. Where does the Adelaide Footy League sit with it all right now?
Oh, we're vanilla at the moment or Pollyanna, as they might. The latest one I've heard is where it ends up. We don't know, and what we have learnt over the course of the last few years, and it's not just relative to the Adelaide Crows, is you can't fight City Hall. The council are really keen to get the Adelaide Crows there. The Sandford have a fairly rock solid lease, and we have a fairly rock solid sublease. So one thing that we can assure you and anyone that's interested is if we are to give up our lease and sublease at Thebarton Oval, it will be done through negotiation with the Adelaide Crows and to a lesser degree West Torrens Council, but we're not going to be pushed around. We will expect to be not so much compensated but considered through this whole process. And to your previous question, this subject alone has the Adelaide Footy League and the Sandford singing from the same songbook. So we've got a lot of things working together at the moment, and Thebarton's just another one.
Have you worked out how far it is to drive from home to Campbelltown, or is that a bit of a furphy?
Listen, I said to Campbelltown was always not so much a throwaway. Campbelltown Oval is a tremendous facility, but at the same time we have one of our affiliates there in Ross Trevor. The East Torrens Cricket Club is there. Listen, if we were being totally magnanimous or pragmatic about the whole thing, we wouldn't want to impose ourselves on the Ross Trevor Football Club or the East Torrens Cricket Club, for that matter, in the same way that we probably would appreciate a greater level of consideration from the Adelaide Crows pushing us around.
Yeah.
So it goes both ways.
Yeah.
We wouldn't do it to us. We don't want anyone to do it to it, you know.
Yeah. Bit of a left field question. One thing I miss and love back in the day is state footy. Obviously, COVID's kiboshed that. Is that on an agenda in some long distance to come back at some point?
I was only talking to the CEO of the Victorian Amateurs yesterday, and what we have done is put state footy on hold this year.
Yeah.
Simply because we've been really clear to our clubs that we think they need to be fairly frugal in their spending for the next 12 months. They need to be conservative in the way they run their business. We need to do the same. So the last thing we needed to do was take 60 players, when I say 60, 30 men, 30 women, to Melbourne. It was our turn to go to Melbourne, plus volunteers. The last thing we needed to do was get there, either not be able to get back, or... so we had to be careful, and that's exactly what we're doing. To answer your question, state footy will come back. Victoria and South Australia, both amateur organisations, are committed to that. It's just going to be a timing issue now. And even one of the things we spoke about yesterday as we come to renewing that enthusiasm was the potential for both organisations to go as a combined team to Ireland and play Gaelic footy.
Oh, wow.
So we still need to provide opportunities for our members. So that'd be men and women, you know, volunteers, parents. They're all the ways that we'd look to re-engaging. And one of the suggestions that came out yesterday wasn't even that it be the best players. It's anyone that wanted to go and that could afford to go.
Yeah.
That it was more about community than it was
Playing
the level of footy or the level of the game.
Well, from my perspective, that's fantastic to hear. And you put your state jumper on. It's a little bit about prestige and respect and the image of the league. And flowing to that, how are we doing projecting the image of the league as a, what did I put down here? A vital community sporting organisation?
Well, by default, I mean, as over the years, other competitions have folded. CDFA, northern areas, all those things have fallen over, and we're the last one standing. So our responsibility is significant in that we need to provide a place for people to play footy. We need to provide clubs who are viable, and that environment needs to be a positive one so that people keep coming back. So even if we don't recognise that responsibility, which we do, we have a significant social footprint, and our responsibility in that footprint is more than just footy. It's bringing people together, it's keeping people engaged. Back to one of the previous questions about mental health. The answer's there. We've got to keep people engaged so that they can be part of a community and live their lives as close to normal as what they have in the past.
From what I see of other state league competitions, you get great media coverage. The flip side of that is if anything goes wrong, you get big media coverage. How frustrating is it for you as an administrator when a player goes rogue on the field?
It's not. What would be frustrating for us as an organisation, or more to the point, frustrating for our members, whether they be clubs or the members that make up those clubs, is any inaction to those challenges. We can't control what people do on a Saturday. What we can control is how we address it. The lesson out of all that is to those that want to transgress, in that there's nowhere to hide anymore. Someone's always got a telephone, there's always a video somewhere. If the transgressor runs the risk of exposing themselves more than us. What we will promise everyone, what we do promise everyone, is that we won't hide. We won't hide from the bad press. It's all part of our journey. It's all part of our responsibility to the game and the community.
And do you think that are we on top of that at the moment, do you think? Or it's just We deal with it when we deal with it.
Listen,
You almost don't want to say you're on top of it because it guarantees something's going to happen.
We don't. There's no need to beat our chest over it, but I think it's widely accepted that the Adelaide Footy League is at the front of all that, and there was a lot of heavy lifting over a long period of time to get to where we are. We're reasonably comfortable, and I think our clubs will tell us that they're comfortable with where we're at. Yeah, listen, as I said, you don't want to thump your own chest, but we're going okay.
Yeah, okay. In terms of umpiring, we often hear now that there's a big shortage. How are we doing for umpires this year?
I think you'll find that we are going to be down in umpires, but relatively to what clubs are down in players. So I just saw the registrations of umpires, and we're down about 20%. Yep. It's consistent with the community.
Yeah. The AFL's cracked down
they should.
On dissent. I was going to ask you your opinion on that.
So they should. Listen, we talk about our responsibility to our community. Their responsibility is to their community, being their affiliates. They want us under their umbrella. So I can guarantee you that if we see a spate of racial vilification offences at AFL level, we will see them on Saturday or Sunday at community level. Yeah. So the responsibility of the AFL is extreme, and I for one think what they're doing at the moment is a positive.
One that always gets me, side note, is the jumper punches.
Yep.
Now, I appreciate there's no real pain, it's just a gamesmanship thing. But I don't want to see that in my under 8s or under 10s being copied by the kids.
It's not the jumper punch. I mean, the jumper punch can be offensive, but it's the resulting behaviour of everyone around it. So we see a jumper punch, and then someone comes in and tries to be a hero and fixes someone up from behind, and next thing someone else comes in and fixes it up. So it's the domino effect that it creates. It's not necessary. It's false bravado. We don't have any patience for it.
Now, any given Saturday, you're out there in the green as an umpire. How have you found that as an experience?
It is an experience, and if anything, it's I don't know if it's taught me, but it's certainly heightened my empathy to an umpire's plight. I've always had a degree of understanding of the challenges that they go through, for no other reason than the feedback that I get on a Monday. But on having seen it play out, it's more than just a player arguing. It's the spectator who, the difference in that spectator's criticisms or judgments are different in the last quarter than they are in the first. Sometimes that's influenced by alcohol. There's a whole range of things. And
the simple fact is, a lot of decisions you're seeing from the inside of the field looking out, they're looking at it from the outside of the field looking in. You've actually start off with a 180-degree different perspective.
And you do. And one of those things is if you picture a contest. You've got 10 players that would be yelling at the umpire saying it's holding the ball. You've got 10 players on the opposition saying it's holding the man, and yet we're asking that umpire to make a decision on the spot with pressure coming from both sides, maybe some from the spectators. Occasionally they get it wrong. Yeah. It's listen, I always used to think that it was a really cheap throwaway from umpires when they'd say, if you don't, you do it yourself. Really, do it yourself. Seriously, it's a tough gig.
You know, I've just asked myself, Jacko and Tony, we had a crack at it last year, and eye-opener it was.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably best. Really good example. This time, well, not this time last year, but into the season last year, there was a wave of complaints about umpiring, and not helped. One of the positives about videoing is the on-field behaviour, but not helped by coaches being able to draw on video and sending it in and saying, well, why didn't he pay this? We didn't see it probably. How would we know? But I sent an invitation to the competitions that had 9 teams, so there was a bye, and invited those that had the bye that they could come and umpire with me on any given Saturday when they had the bye. No one took it up. So What happens when you pass those opportunities up? You also lose the opportunity to be critical.
Yeah. I mean, I look at the scores every week, and every single game players miss shots at goal.
Absolutely.
And that's, every player probably has an ineffective kick.
Yeah.
Umpires are going to make mistakes, and whilst there's managers and training and feedback to improve, as you as a player improve at training, you have to accept that at this level there's going to be mistakes. So be it.
Listen, one of the conversations I had last year with a coach from a lower grade, for example, let's just say it was Division 5. I said to them, what would you say if I said, why did those players drop that ball, or why did they miss the handball, or why did they? And his answer was, well, they're Division 5 players. And my answer was, but this is a Division 5 umpire. You've actually got the 100th best umpire in the whole competition.
Fair point. You could take a lot out of that. So, do you find that an outlet for you to umpire?
I wouldn't say it's an outlet. I mean, I've got my own things outside of football that I go with. It's the umpiring thing has been a really good experience or exercise, so that I can touch everything that's going on in the league, whether it be umpiring, seeing what the players are doing, hearing what the players are saying. And to be fair, what I do enjoy about it the most is I like going to footy games. I can still go to a footy game and be out in the middle without being on the sidelines and enduring the commentary that goes with it.
You'll probably get more stuff if you're sitting on the sideline. You mentioned you have other outlets. You can have those as a CEO? What do you get up to?
Not only can you have to.
Yep.
And as my kids get older, I spend, like any father, I'm no orphan, as my kids get older, I spend more time being engaged with them, their footy, their rowing, whatever they're doing at the time. But I also, in 2019, I became qualified as a yoga teacher, for example.
Okay.
So whilst I've been doing yoga since 2014, since 2019 I've been teaching. That's probably become more of a focus in the last 6 to 12 months. But again, that's only reflective of what we've been speaking about earlier. It's consistent with health, whether it be physical or mental. It's just about having an outlet.
Yeah. And as a CEO, do you have one thing on your to-do list that you're still really keen on? I haven't got to it yet and I need to do that?
Oh, listen, it's one of the questions I get from people is what's next for the organisation, or what's next for you, and you could easily argue that you've got a life cycle in this job. I'm not sure that you do, because there's always something new to address. So at the moment it's COVID. Last couple of years it's been Thebarton. It's going to become Thebarton again. If it's not Thebarton, we're going to have to go somewhere else. We're in the process of trying to provide a better platform for our media, and perhaps get our live streaming on commercial television. How we do that, it's really early days. So there's no one particular agenda item, as much as embracing as many opportunities that head our way and making the most of it when we get them. It's at the end of the day, it's just football.
Yeah. And that's what's coming up in a few days. What are you looking forward to most about the season ahead?
I think to see people re-engaged. At the moment, everyone's a little bit flighty. There's a little bit of idle hands is the devil's workshop. So this is actually a really, it's not frustrating, it's a challenge, because this is the time when everyone's got time on their hands, they're waiting for the games to be played. After next week, I wouldn't say it's home free, but everyone's doing what they came for.
And you get into a rhythm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. John Kernahan, thank you for taking on board all of those questions. It's been a pleasure, and thanks for being our first guest.
No, thank you.
And thank you for watching. That's been Phil's Footy Talk. Hope you enjoy the 2022 season.